Sustainability. That's become the theme of this program. We've done many shows on it. We're going to continue to do many more. Tonight we're going to do an in-depth look at Michael Killen and how he creates these pictures on sustainability on any of the work that he does. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to take apart his big 24-foot painting, 6 feet at a time, and get into some of the details of what's behind it, how he has put this together, what his thoughts are, and where will we go from here. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the painting.
And it's the painting because, as far as we know, it's the largest painting in the world on sustainability.
Yes, I'm not aware if anyone has even made a 3 by 3 foot painting on sustainability. I just don't. I've never seen it. But I decided to make a 24-foot long by 5 feet painting on sustainability.
Okay, now did it just start that way or did it grow? Knowing you,
No.
I was wondering if you started 1 panel, 2 panel, and so forth.
Well, when NASA asked me to make a painting on sustainability to help enrich their new building sustainability base, I at first thought about 6 by 5 feet, because that's the size I normally make a painting.
In fact, that's a painting that we have right on the set with us now.
Yes, the one right behind us, Climate Change for the Rest of Us. But then I thought, you know, this is NASA, so I want to make something NASA size. And so I decided, well, 12 feet by 5 feet. And then I said, well, why not 18? And I started to think about, you know, in thinking about sustainability, it really cuts across all sorts of aspects of our lives. But then I started to focus on renewable energy, and I thought, well, we have wind and sun. And so I said, well, 6 feet for wind, 6 feet for sun, and then we have thermal energy, another 6 feet. And then I also thought about NASA, and I remember what they did many, many decades ago where they landed on Tranquility Base on the moon. And what NASA is in effect doing right now is landing back on the Earth to help us. And where are they landing? At Sustainability Base. So I wanted to capture a bit of, you know, landing on the moon and now landing on the Earth.
So each of these segments or sections is a specific focus, as you just covered, which is, go ahead.
Yes, it is, and it also has an interface. I mean, I have to go from one part of the painting, which starts out with wind, and then find a way to move to the next and the next. And one of the things I wanted to do was show some things that are just not working well for us, for anyone in the world, and that's buildings. You know, there's millions of buildings, and most of them are leaking a tremendous amount of energy, just wasting it. So I wanted to show some buildings.
Okay, now what I think we should do is get in, and we're going to take a look at each panel separately, and then perhaps the painting completed as one 24-foot painting.
Okay.
So why don't we take a look at the very first segment, and we'll kind of go back and forth. We'll talk a little bit, show it, and in order to show it's a television show, we need to keep appearing on it. So let's bring up our very first one. So there we go. All right, here's our very first panel.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
you know it in your head. Thank you.
So what inspired me to make that panel? I was thinking about wind, all right? And, you know, when the wind blows and hits a sail on a sailboat, the energy comes down through the masts. And I also started thinking about horses, because some of the earliest paintings ever, those made by cavemen, like, for example, in the Lascaux caves in France, they painted beautiful horses. So I I like to have things like a mass of a sail that morphs into a horse, and the pressure of the wind and it creates horsepower. And when I made that panel, I was also thinking about spacecrafts and the shuttle, for example, and caves at the same time. And you see a white base encapsulating everything, and that came from thinking about the shuttle and caves. And I also thought on the far left I should have some tumultuous things happening, like typhoons or tornadoes, and then
nature's participation with all these things.
yes, and so I think that's pretty much what's in the first left-hand panel.
Okay. Are we ready for the next panel?
Sure.
All right, let's do the next panel.
Now, if we look in the background of that painting, and I tend to paint layer on top of layer, we have a series of brown, nondescript buildings, okay?
Okay.
And I superimposed on those buildings a incandescent light bulb, okay?
Okay.
And if you notice, I put a piece of caveman art. That's the black figure. I tend to stamp caveman art on things that are dead or going to be gone in the near future. That's why it's on the light bulb. And then I'm very much interested in thermal energy. And if you look, you see the red on the bottom, on the left. That's two lovers. And they're hugging each other. And what do lovers create? Heat.
Heat, right.
And there's one arm that comes up and grabs the bottom of a modern light bulb, you know, one of the compact fluorescent lights.
The new ones, yeah.
So the heat is coming up from the two bodies and grabbing onto the bottom of the modern light bulb and lighting it up.
Wow.
And if you look closely at those brown buildings, you'll see there's a socket coming out of one side, plugging into a wire, and that wire goes like this and comes down, and then the wire frays.
Okay, sure.
You know, the strands spread.
Yeah, comes on.
That's symbolic of energy coming out of the building and just being wasted.
Just dissipated, yeah.
Yes. Also in this particular panel, if you look carefully, you'll see a blue Statue of Liberty. I happen to be not a foolish patriot, but I'm very, very impressed with the United States government, and with all its faults, God help us that we have such a good, competent government, or at least parts of it that are just so wonderful. So there is a Statue of Liberty, and I use Liberty to have her morph, her feet morphed into sort of an aqueduct or a stream. And we have now water that starts to ripple. I forget if it's in, oh, it is in this panel. We have it rippling under a infinity sign with children's pictures on it. And I'm a believer that we need to have an image in this world that represents sustainability. So that green sustainability or infinity sign that the water goes underneath, I put that there to help get people to think about that image. And if you look in the background, the lowest level of that painting, you will see a gigantic golden infinity sign peeking out from the images.
Excellent. One of the things that you have been using for some time is the infinity sign, particularly with creativity and then moving into sustainability. Once you create something, then it's a matter of keeping it going, as we've talked about frequently. All right, I think we're ready for our third panel, Michael.
Okay. So I have to look, huh?
You don't have to look. You haven't looked so far.
Okay, I don't need to look.
So we'll bring up the next panel here as soon as we get into place and start talking about it now.
All right, what was on my mind when I made this panel was the fact that NASA was building a building called Sustainability Base that had the goal of being the most energy efficient building in the entire federal system, that had a goal of being an exemplar for the rest of the nation or the world to help commercial businesses and consumers realize that they too should build or own or make their buildings more sustainable. So, and this panel, or this particular part of the painting, also shows solar energy panel being, in my mind, being brought into the building as part of building the building process. So that's why we have two people carrying a big solar panel. It's the contractors, the workers building Sustainability Base. And what else do I have there? Well, I can peek here for a second. In the background, you can see, again, part of this big sustainability. It's a 5-foot high, long infinity sign.
All right.
And also, as part of this painting, this panel, I wanted to address water. Water is like energy, okay? And I mean, water is probably, the lack of water or inability to get good water is probably a great threat to civilization. And I remember that the NASA folks told me that they developed some very, very advanced purification systems that they use in space. And I wouldn't be too surprised if NASA soon is going to encourage commercial enterprises to license the technology they develop for purifying water. So I have a system there where water is coming out of like a shower top, going into a sponge, and it comes out a little differently, and it goes into a big bucket, and it's being carried onto Sustainability Base. So I think that's about all I have there.
Okay, before we bring up the next panel, why don't we talk a little bit about the overview of the panel, then we'll get into the details of the panel.
Okay. Well, the overview, my mission was to make the biggest and the best and the most, best is the most influential painting on sustainability that helps other organizations increase awareness of the need for all of us to change our behavior and be more sustainable.
Okay.
That was my whole goal.
Well, it's a straightforward objective.
Yeah, a very, I don't have that big of an ego.
Okay, now in the fourth panel, still I don't want to bring it up yet, but in the fourth panel, talk about the overview of the panel, then we'll take a look at it in detail.
More on the overview.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this is quite good. This is the first time I've ever undertaken a 24-foot painting. And by the way, Picasso's biggest painting, I believe, was 26 feet. Okay.
Well, maybe the next time you'll top you.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, when you buy canvases, unless you make your own, they generally are 6 feet increments,
Right.
and so 24 feet.
Okay.
And then I have my studio is just not okay. But maybe one of these days I'll make one bigger than 26
Okay.
feet.
What I'm specifically talking about is talking about that particular panel and some of the structure in it, so when we see it, we'll understand it a little better.
Oh, I understand. The last panel, the ideas for making the painting. And by the way, if you're going to make a painting, let me tell you, you've got to come up with ideas that are meaningful to you and maybe the public.
And we're up there now, so our panel's up. So
for this one, I was intrigued by what NASA did in landing on the moon.
Right.
No simple feat. Remember, they landed on Tranquility Base, and I like to think that a flying saucer is now landing at Moffett Field,
okay.
where Sustainability Base has been designated, and I can't make a rocket ship. It's not my, it's just too, I have to be a little strange. So I made a a flying saucer, but it's also a saucer for a cup, and I put a cup on it. If you notice, if you study it.
Yes, yeah.
But I tend to think of it as the people from NASA are coming out of that saucer, cup and saucer, and they're coming out this orange tunnel. And if you look at some of their spacecrafts, they do have a way of getting out of, some of the lunar probes and stuff, where people come out the bottom of it through an orange tube. And so I was inspired by what NASA did in space to symbolically paint them landing on the Earth. And I think it's just wonderful that their mission has changed slightly to worry more about the Earth, although they worry a lot, always have worried about a lot of the Earth. They have data that they give to Stanford and all the universities and all the researchers around the world that only they, for the most part, can, because they got these gigantic satellite systems.
Okay, I want to get into Michael the painter. How much studying do you do? Literally reading things, attending events, listening to radio programs, seeing television shows that stimulate your ideas, that push your creativity so you really have the ability and skill to put it on canvas.
Can I say, when I was in elementary school, every night of the week, I was out with different organizations. Like Monday night, it was the adult chess. This is when I was in elementary, YMCA chess, men's chess club. Tuesday night, it was the German gymnastics. Wednesday, it was the Swiss gymnastics. Friday night, it was the Boy Scouts. I just had this incredible interest in a lot of different things, and I participated in a lot of things, and I remain that way. And everybody I bump into stimulates me and gives me ideas. Everything I see, and my psychiatrist says no one could ever live with me because I have so many epiphanies all day long, and if I was to share them with anyone, I would drive them crazy. I have this massive number of contacts, which I value, books as well, and little thing here, and it just connects, and something comes in my head and really fascinates me.
Well, it sounds as if it's your quest for knowledge that never even slows down, ever.
I agree.
I've known you for 25 years, and I don't think I could live with you either, so that would be quite true. But your intensity, and whenever you do something, it's the highest intensity of any person that I've ever met in my life, and that's a positive thing. You push something to the limit. You push yourself to the limit, and your expectancy is you're always going to succeed.
Oh, yes. I never had any doubt that I could make sustainability. And, in fact, I love for people to come to me with the most abstract concept and challenge me to symbolically articulate it in a painting. And, try starting out and make a painting on sustainability. Where do you begin? It's an awesome undertaking for a lot of people, but for me, for some reason, it's my thing.
Well, one thing you did do, as you've talked about, you segmented each of these disciplines. And without that, it would be perhaps a mishmash.
Yes. Now, there are some people who believe to be creative, you have no structures whatsoever. Not me. I believe in structures. So, by the way, I believe in having a lot of information sources. But then I also believe in having in one's head methodologies for effectively utilizing the information.
I think one of the most fascinating things prior to any of the things we're talking about now was when you came across and you did what you talked about this a little bit, overlaid. You started with the caveman, and then you put another generation and another generation, and it's all there. If you look to the deepest end of this, you'll still see the caveman, but you'll see modern day world also.
Yes, I don't know why it happens that way, but like I made, one of my first really big I don't mean big, but sort of successful paintings was the beginning after the end. And for some reason, I felt, as I was watching how the world was going by, that, maybe there could be a finite amount of years for civilization. And I said, oh, fine. And if civilization ends as we know it, I then said to myself, well, maybe 4 million years later, a new civilization will begin. And it popped into my head, well, what would they see on the caves? What would these new people see on the caves? Like just we saw cave art, okay.
Right.
So I then, on a painting, painted what I think what they'd see. And in one case, it was a woman with an iPhone. Another was a factory spruing out carbons and SUV. And then I said, well, that's what they would see in the first new cave people. What would they do? They'd paint new cave art on top of it. So that's what I did.
So basically, it's a historical timepiece that goes back to the beginning of man and comes forward all in one painting, effectively.
Yeah.
Your thought process related to that. You start off with a layer. You put another layer. How do you decide, or if you do decide, to put the next layer down? What's it going to be about? How do you build this painting?
Well, it's a mixture of thoughts, and one is I tend to put an image down that is historic. It's gone. It's no longer the thing no longer exists. Okay, but we have a picture of it, and then I might layer on top of it something that indicates that what's below is gone. Okay, and
is there? Let me interrupt you. Is there ever a tie from one layer to the next?
Well, I don't know if I have ever morphed from the past to. No, in my mind they're discrete, and I'd like to give you an example. I did a painting called "The Evolution of Consciousness." Just a light subject like that, and I thought I just wanted to do, and I thought, how would I ever capture this? And I said, wait a second. Some of the greatest art made 20, 30,000 years ago was paintings of bulls in again, the Lascaux caves of France. So I decided I'll repaint a few of those bulls. And I said to myself, before I made that decision, I said, well, if I now superimpose on top of the bull the icons of today's paintings of bulls, which is certainly the work of Picasso. I took one of Picasso's paintings, Man Bull, and I superimposed it on it, making sure that the previous 20,000-year-ago bull could be seen through, and I put the Man Bull on it, and those 2 points on the painting are 2 points that allow us to think about the evolution of consciousness, because 20,000 years ago, how they painted bulls is an indication of their level of consciousness. How Picasso, which is still today, how he painted bulls.
Wonderful.
I get excited about doing things like that.
I can feel you're getting antsy about making some announcements, so why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay, 2 things. First of all, Dan Ingerman is an important printer in the Palo Alto area, and he is the president of a printing company called We Morph. And I have selected Dan to rework our set, and he's going to take, I believe, the 24-foot painting Sustainability and redesign the set using those images. And I'm just delighted he's going to do that.
That's exciting. That's really exciting, yes.
Another thing that interests me is, and I'd like to always promote environmental groups, Sustainable Silicon Valley, an important organization, is having a big conference on January the 27th, and people ought to go to their website, possibly want to go. This is a painting I made for the Save the Bay folks. It's really a 6-foot by 4 painting, and it's called It Gives and Gives and Gives, the San Francisco Bay. I made it so we all start thinking about if we wanted to keep giving and giving and giving to us, we should give to efforts like the Save the Bay.
Excellent.
And by the way, the University Art chain of stores, Palo Alto, San Jose, and San Francisco, is selling that for gifts.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, we've got a couple of minutes left, so I want to come back to thoughts that you have beyond the 24-foot painting. It could be smaller paintings, but basically, where do you see yourself headed now?
Well, I'm certainly going to make a new painting, start one real soon, maybe within a week. I haven't exactly decided, but now that I focused on water with the San Francisco Bay, and that the America's Cup is coming in the summer of 2013, and that's going to bring the focus of 500 million people on the Bay, which I think is a truly wonderful opportunity for every environmental organization to get their message out or prepare something to take advantage of all the people that are going to be focused here. It's an opportunity for the environmental folks to get their message in the press, television. It's an incredible opportunity for all the artists in the Bay to make art inspired by the Bay or other water issues. And I'm trying to encourage the environmentalists and the artists to envision the opportunity that the America's Cup creates for them.
Well, this is an exciting time, no question about it. One last comment regarding the America's Cup and Save the Bay. Would you say this is one of the most important projects, without putting words in your mouth, that we have coming up?
Well, yes, it's for folks in the Bay Area. It is a great, environmental folks, it's a great opportunity for them to do something to be sure their message comes out in the summer of 2013. It's also a great opportunity for artists who tend to be more liberal than a lot of folks and want to do something for the environment.
Okay, Michael, it's been a pleasure. Michael Killen, Charlie Class.
Thank you.
Michael Killen.